Mr. Goldgard.
Hi, Zoe.
So we're doing a project on lack of student civil rights in schools, lack of practice of student civil rights in schools, and I'd just like to ask you a few questions. So how does the school inform students of their civil rights?
So, in terms of civil rights, students have a set of the student rights and responsibilities, and so that, by and large, is the largest time in which the students are explicitly told, this is what you have the rights, these are the expectations for you. My hope would be is that in general these students are not feeling that their civil rights are infringed upon. They are certainly they're made aware of certain things, like, for example, students probably know that when they are involved in an incident in which school discipline might be involved, they're often asked to write a statement, and the statement itself, the form says that they don't have to write a statement, and it's sort of seen as an opportunity in which students have a chance to participate in the process. So there's a process in which sort of the truth is being discovered.
Alrighty. Well, follow up on that question. Some students do still feel like that even though they are informed, that their civil rights aren't really given to them. They feel sometimes intimidated by either teachers or like school security.
Okay.
So, I mean...
Can you share a little bit more about that?
So we did a survey on about 120 students, and some comments were that they feel that they're intimidated by either teachers or school security. That like they can't really express themselves and say what they really feel because they feel punished like whenever they try to say something about it.
So
that was something that was new to me too. I felt like that students just kind of took it, but they really don't.
Okay, well that's certainly disappointing. So in terms of knowing their civil rights, you might have a better idea than I, because I haven't gone up to 120 students and said, hey, do you know what your civil rights are? When it's part of the discipline process, that's made right in front of them, and it's something in which our school has been very clear that students don't have to make a statement, that they're often heard. There's often a difference between sort of students being able to say what they want and feeling like that what they said was what everybody agrees to. I think it's probably true for populations, whether they be students or adults in the greater society, that reminders of what civil rights, or having them take a lot of time, like they probably know characters on reality TV shows perhaps more than their civil rights, just because it's part of the culture. So one of the things that we try to do at the start of the year when we introduce SR&R is not to make it something like, okay, here's the book, off you go, figure it out. And so we want them to be familiar with what is likely to happen most often, for our students to be able to make sure so that going to an assistant principal's office is not a scary thing. I think that many people who feel lower to a certain authority, in many cases might be a little sheepish in terms of what their rights are or what they can say. I think that if people can express their thoughts respectfully, if they were talking to any school staff member, that their thoughts would be welcomed. It's sort of a matter of making sure they also understand that there's often a right place and a right time to do that. In the middle of a class when learning is supposed to be happening, this could be an unwelcome tantrum. But certainly if students are feeling like that their rights are being denied to them, there's always an opportunity to get some relief.
So, have you ever seen a situation where you feel like students didn't express their student civil rights when they should have?
I do think that there are times in which students might not advocate for themselves, I think as a staff, we're constantly looking for it. It's a conversation that we have as a staff on a regular basis about how do we get students asking for help. You know, it'd be almost similar to, of asking, I don't know, an algebra teacher, a chemistry teacher, an English teacher, a history teacher. Do you think that there are some times when students don't know the answer and they're afraid to ask questions? And I would say, I would hope not, but it's impossible to tell because they're not asking the question. And I think my experience would tell me that there are certain times in which they don't want to ask the question. They don't want to look like
that one person.
That right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so it might happen. You know, I think I've talked with students many times about matters with teachers in which they don't necessarily feel the same value that I know the teacher feels for them, and they don't like being identified as a single individual. And so sometimes I will hear from time to time, I don't want the teacher, I don't want the school counselor, I don't want the school staff member to know because I'm afraid this might happen. And, you know, in my experience, the professionalism of staff, that they want to know. The staff want to know because they're there to help. When I think about civil rights, we're all, I guess, sort of talking about, to some degree, conflict resolution. You know, we want students to feel comfortable with conflict resolution. We see it in the hallways between students all the time. You know, you guys have been in schools long enough that you know that in many cases, students might say, well, don't tell this friend this. I'm afraid she's going to think of this of me. Or I'm afraid that, you know, he'll say something else about me. It's guaranteed that you will have conflict resolution in your life. And so those are certainly situations that we want students to be able to talk openly and work things out as part of that partnership.